So the nuance we put in the question is very important because we want to be perceived as a trusted BX partner to share and to help, not to challenge the customer. And the deliverables of the ThinkBix are 1 to 3 years digital strategy, digital roadmap, and the near-term digital initiative via MVP. And once we finish with the ThinkBig stage, we move to the Start Smart phase in the DX Garage. This stage is very straightforward, actually, to help the customer start smart by delivering the business value via quick MVP project. We run design thinking workshop to define the key use case and the UI prototype. Later, we based on the output of the design thinking workshop, we prioritize features to develop MVP solution. Also, we will validate whether the think big pain point in the previous step are delivered in this MVP. And then we plan for the MVP implementation in the next 3 and 6 months. So last but not least, we come up with a scale fast phase with the DX accelerator. In this stage, we have the customer deliver on the think big deliverables, then monitor the execution so as to achieve speed, agility, cost optimization, and productivity boost. We are going to do that by identify KPI and how to monitor, coordinate the implementation, assist in troubleshooting and removing roadblock, and then we ensure the concrete business outcome that deliver real business value for the customer. So that is the cheat as a quick start for the digital Kyzien part A. And to follow up, of course, in the future, in the next following week, we will schedule another call with FAP to present all the template for the DX Lighthouse. And now is the time for the feedback and question.
Oh, Huyen, sorry, Randy, maybe just to go back to review just a really important part. Today, we really want to focus on step 1 here for the Lighthouse. Could you go back to the previous screen, please? To the step 1 for the questions. So again, as we said when we started, what we found was that late last year, we interviewed some people, OBs, and we figured out that no one was really using digital Kaizen because it was quite complicated and theoretical. So again, the point is to how do we begin to help the OBs start a dialogue with the executive level customers? But there are a few people, let's be honest, there are a few people that are comfortable with this sort of consulting engagement. But the majority of our OB teams, account managers, are not yet comfortable with this sort of consulting approach and having this high-level conversation. So the point here of step number 1 in these 5 questions that Huyen has listed is to help you have that conversation. So we give you here sample questions to ask the customer to start the dialogue, because the objective here is to uncover some business challenges that the customer may have that gives us an opportunity to find solutions for those challenges. So we give you these 5 questions as examples of questions to start that dialogue to uncover those unknown challenges. And once we uncover the challenges, we can dig in a bit deeper with some 5 why questions and really start to uncover some additional opportunities for FSoft. So again, this is the important part that we want to cover today on step number 1 here for the Lighthouse, is we want to give you these cheat sheet questions to start that dialogue. So that's one of the important messages today, and one of the things we want to really get your feedback on. Are you comfortable having this conversation? Do you believe that these kinds of questions will help you engage that customer at the right level? And Elvin said, one of our challenges is getting in front of the right people. But once we get in front of them, we do need to be able to have this sort of a dialogue. So one of our important questions for you, the FAP team today is, are you comfortable using these kind of questions to have this dialogue? And do you think this is useful for you? And what we'll do next is we'll help we've created some templates So once you get the answers back from the customer, we can start to give you templates on what we can deliver to the customer: digital transformation roadmap, digital strategy, specific digital maturity assessment methodologies that you can use to help your customer understand where they are in terms of DX maturity. So we have templates that'll be included in the next step. But today we want to focus on these 5 questions for number 1 here. So any feedback here on the applicability and the value of digging into these kinds of questions to uncover these challenges?
Any feedback? Yeah.
So maybe the first question is: Are you having these kinds of high-level conversations with your executive level customers today? Are you even having those kind of conversations?
You are on mute.
David, maybe we can start with you. How do you feel about the customer engagement at the executive level in FAP, and having these sorts of Kyzien conversations to start this consulting engagement?
Sorry, maybe one question that may or may not be related to the previous one. Some of the challenges maybe that we encounter when we speak to customer about such challenges is that when they throw out, when it's in a big boardroom meeting setting, when we throw out these questions, all of their different views to actually throw out the individual challenges. So it becomes a bit too much to handle because we don't know their environment that well to give recommendations to each of those challenges to help them move forward to the next step of transformation. Then how do we get one focus and move the conversation on from there?
Yeah, Adeline, that's a great question, and that's exactly. And we've heard this kind of question back from the other OBs as well. So this is why we're trying to improve these tools to help exactly that. So if we think about it, maybe in 2 steps. In step 1 here is the questions to start the dialogue, right? To ask about business challenges. As you can, let's be specific here. Let's look at these 5 questions. Who are your biggest competitors, and what do you believe is their strength in the market? If you ask this kind of question, you'll get the feedback from your customer about their bigger competitors, and why do they think their competitors are strong in the market? Where are their strengths? You can start to ask questions. So do you, Mr. Customer, do you want to become strong in those areas as well? And those areas could be technology areas. It could be people skill sets areas. They could be business process areas. But the idea, Adeline, is once you start to ask these questions, they give you the answers, and you can begin to dig a bit deeper into those questions to understand their challenges a bit more. And you will get to the point where you will start to identify 1 or 2 very specific challenges that this executive has in the business. And then to your point, once you understand those specific challenges, then the next step that we can do is you can start to recommend a consulting project for your customer, where we can then help them create a digital roadmap to solve those challenges and eventually get to the specific solutions that will solve those challenges for them as well. And what I mentioned earlier was templates. So the next step then would, at the end of this meeting, you've identified some challenges. So then the next steps, what you can say is, we can put together a consulting proposal for you, and we can create for you a 3-year digital strategy and roadmap to solve these challenges for you. And we can come in and help you do a digital maturity assessment inside your company as well, to understand where are your strengths and weaknesses when it comes to digital maturity. And again, to uncover where we can help the customer a bit more. So what we're doing is we've created some templates around this digital maturity assessment and the digital strategy roadmap that you can use as tools to present to your customer on examples of what we can deliver to them as a result of a consulting project. So this is the idea, is that we first dig and uncover the challenges, and then we can propose a consulting project to them, which would include some of the things I just mentioned. And again, we will provide the templates to you so that you can actually show the customer exactly what we can deliver to them as a result of this consulting project. Does that help? Does that help, Adeline?
Yeah. Yeah, thank you for that. So I think that's something that will be very helpful to the team. Maybe you will cover this later on when we are running through the digital roadmap. But one other question, maybe if you want to take it up later, it's fine. How do we strike the balance between the IT challenges and the business challenges?
Yeah, I guess you could think of it as a balance, but you can also think of it as sort of phases as well. I think what we want to try to do with Digital Kyzien is the first thing we want to try to do is really uncover the business challenges. We don't want to focus on IT. We don't want to focus on the technology initially. What we really want to focus on is the business challenges. And again, those challenges may be process oriented, they may be people oriented, organization or skill set oriented. But we really want to first focus on what are those business challenges that the customer has. And then once we understand those challenges, then we can start to think about the road mapping, the digital maturity assessment, and eventually get to the point where we can identify the very specific technology and IT implementation that we can provide for them to solve those challenges. But the idea of Digital Kyzien is that we really want to focus initially in the lighthouse on these business challenges. So it's not necessarily that you have to balance them and doing them at the same time, but you could think of it as the first step is really having that business conversation and understanding those business challenges. And then the consulting project will be where we will dig into that and then propose to them what the technology solution may be to solve those challenges.
Got it. So, okay, I'll take a look at the digital roadmap later on if there's another question. Thank you.
Cool. Any other questions or asking for clarification? Because this is, to be honest, the other OBs that we've spoken to with and gone through this have exactly the same kinds of questions. I think everyone has the same challenges, everyone has the same questions, and everybody's asking for the same sorts of tools and templates. So this is exactly what we're trying to provide. So, we're to be honest, quite early still in the process of creating these tools. So now's the time. If you have some ideas or questions on what you need, please let us know, and we'll be happy to create those tools for you.
Sure.
Yeah, Randall, this is Brian here.
Hey, Brian.
Yeah, no, just a quick one from my end, right? So, sometimes we go to the customer, especially the CXO or the Chief Revenue Officer, right? So the question they have for me was, we are in the traditional brick and mortar business. So this customer that I'm referring to, they are public transport operator, right? So this was back in 2016, 2017, right, where all this Uber and the Grab is coming in, right, to come and disrupt their business model. So their question internally was, how come my CIO, my CDO is not able to anticipate such a disruption? And when they saw those disruption, why are we not able to, rise up to the challenge and, try to create our own business model? So I guess the question from the CEO was that, we know there are lots of disruption coming in. So how can we, look at those disruption and try to create new business model? And for them, they are just wanting to think of way to have increased revenue, and they don't know how to do it, right? So this is where, they are, we need to have a structured approach. And you mentioned about the digital maturities, step one. So I'm just wanting to take this conversation forward, right? So after you assess our digital maturity, how do you think FSoft can come in to advise us, the business model that we have, how should we, disrupt the existing business model?
Yeah, thank you, Brian. That's a perfect question, actually, right? It's a scenario that happens many, many times. So there's a couple of answers to your question. Let me answer the second part first. So the digital maturity assessment. So one of the tools and templates that we have is this digital maturity assessment, where we can actually go in and do interviews with people inside the company, executive level, or even mid-level, or other workers inside the company, depending on what the customer wants. Interview questions to ask them around, what's really happening in terms of their digital maturity. And we ask questions around processes. Are they mature in digital processes? People, organization, skill sets. How are you doing in skill sets in terms of digital understanding and maturity? And in technology, of course, as well, right? So are you leveraging cloud? Are you leveraging data? Are you taking advantage of some of the technologies that are out there? So when we go through this assessment, what happens is the result of these interviews and this assessment is a score. It's a score in each of these three areas: people, process, and technology. And we can look at where the customer is strong and where they're weak. So the next thing that we would do, Brian, is we would look at those areas where the customer is weak in terms of the digital maturity, and we would focus on those areas. And we would propose solutions that would help them improve in those areas. So let's just, as an example, let's say that we understand that in terms of processes, that the customer is not, in your example, right, a transport company, logistics company. If they're not taking advantage of digital processes in their company, if they're doing a lot of things on clipboards, if they're doing a lot of things manually in Excel sheets, if they're sending information back and forth via email with attachments, that's an indication that they're not very mature in digital processes. So what we can do is, if that's where they're weak, we can go in and recommend some areas of, here are some specific processes that you can digitize, that you can be more digital, mature in what you're doing. And we can help you take these manual processes and make them more digital. So that's one specific example of the result of the assessment is, here's where you're weak and here's how we can help you. And we would go in and we would propose to them how we would help them, move these processes from manual to digital. So if they're collecting data on clipboards and writing it down, and then someone enters that into a computer, one thing we can do is propose to them, how do we get rid of this clipboard? How do we start to collect this data in a digital way, in an automated way, to get that friction out of your process and make sure that that data is seamlessly moving from your systems into your decision-making tools, as an example, right? So that's one very specific example on how we can manage the digital maturity assessment, and then give them a proposal on what we can do for them in terms of consulting. On the first part of your question, when you talked about, you're having this dialogue, we're asking some questions, we're trying to uncover, in your example, how do we have a lot of disruptive competitors coming in with Uber or Grab, these other companies. How do we not see it coming? How can we be more innovative? And so for this one, Brian, I'd go back to the questions that we have here on the screen, right? Just as, for example, question number 3 and question number 5. If you know your customer is having issues around being disruptive and not being innovative enough, question 3 and 5 here is an example of how you can start that conversation, right? So number 3, do you believe you have the infrastructure and the skill sets to execute your transformation? So, right, you can have a hard conversation with the customer. Okay, if you're being disruptive and you don't think you're being innovative quite fast enough, do you have the right people? Do you have the right skill sets in your company? Do you have people that are thinking about technology and digital and, trying to automate systems? Do you have people that are knowledgeable about cloud platforms and data analytics and big data, and artificial intelligence, that sort of thing? Because these are the skill sets you need today in your business to be innovative, to avoid being disrupted. Question 5 is another good example of what you can ask this customer. Is there a culture of innovation and risk-taking in your organization? If you're being disrupted, if you're constantly feeling like you're being disruptive, you're not being proactive enough in upgrading your systems and your processes and your people. Do you have a culture inside your company of innovation? Do you allow your people to take risks? Do you allow your people to bring in a new cloud-based tool right, to store information in the cloud instead of on somebody's PC so that it's available to everyone in the company to make a decision, right? So this is the reason of these questions, is to find those areas that you want to start the conversation with your audience, with your customer, and start to dig into some of these questions and uncover these things. And it's, it could be a painful conversation, but it's a way for us to uncover what are the real challenges that they have. So if your logistics transport company is feeling like they're being disruptive, you can have this conversation and start it with these kinds of questions. So Brian, does that answer your question?
Yes, Randall. So now the next question from the CEO is, how do we deliver this? How do we quantify the result that or the transformation, right, that we will bring to them? How do we quantify the ROI?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, so our next, so the next thing we would do, as you can see, step here is the MVP, right? So one example of what we would do, Brian, is once we figure out the challenge, once we figure out the solution of what we can do, let's go back to the example again. What we can do is we can create an MVP, right? We can create a small, quick win project. Let's say a 3 or 4 month project where we can actually create an MVP for them. Again, let's use the same example we're talking about. If they have a manual process where they're collecting data on a clipboard, we can propose an MVP project where we can automate that, where we can collect information, for example, maybe from a truck, for example, right? A delivery truck. Maybe we want to collect information in an automated way from a truck, automatically feed that information into the system so people can see it, on the cloud and make decisions on it quickly. So one way we can show them value and return on investment is starting with a small project, because they may have 3, 4, or 5 different areas that they want to work on, which is fine, because that's why we need to create a longer term roadmap for them. But what we can do is choose one of those projects and let's create an MVP, 3 to 4 month project. We'll do something small, but quickly we can show them some quick value and the value of automating one of their processes to get data into the system without a clipboard, without a manual process, and doing it in an automated way. And we can quickly show them a return on investment in that quick win project that we can create. And then after the success of that MVP, then we would just go to step number 3 here, which is scaling it up, scaling it into different machinery inside their system, scaling it up to different processes in the system, and continuing to show that ROI on a much larger scale. But what we would want to do is take it from step 1, roadmap, to a small quick win MVP and show them that return on investment.
Okay, thanks, Randall.
And that's kind of why we show this in 3 steps, right? 1, 2, 3. You start the high level conversation, identify the challenges. Step number 2, let's have a quick win to prove some value. And then step 3 is let's scale this thing up to be company wide.
And this digital maturity study, right? Is this a complementary that we do? Typically, how long is this process?
Yeah, so good question. So we have two tools that we can use. If you're not aware, we actually have a mobile application for iOS and for Android. It's called the DNA application, DNA application. And it's actually an application you can send to your customer. They can download it on their phone. And it's a series of questions, a digital maturity assessment questions that they can actually, I forget the number, and maybe you remember, 15 or 20 questions, something like that, assessment questions that your customer can do on their own. And at the end of these questions, the application will actually give them a high-level view of their strengths and weaknesses. So what we can do is take the results of this application and take it to the customer and say, here are the quick results of the assessment that you did on your own. Now what we'd like to do is we want to take this deeper into your organization, and we'll come in and do some one-on-one interviews inside your organization. So those 2 steps, Brian. So step 1 is the application, and that just takes a few minutes for a customer to go through it, to do kind of a self-assessment. And then what we do is take the results of that, and then we would propose some either workshops or one-on-one interviews where we go in and we talk to, let's say, let's say 10 to 20 people inside the organization on these workshops or one-on-one interviews to dig in a bit deeper into their digital maturity and what we can help them with. So the first part of the application is just a few minutes to go through the questions. The second part will probably, depending on the company and the number of interviews, it could take 30 days, maybe something like that, to go through the digital maturity assessment interviews and workshopping to get kind of the bigger picture.
Okay. So this is available in the Android or iOS? Yeah,
correct.
Sorry. I'll take a look. I just joined the company, so apologies.
No. It's okay, Brian. To be honest with you, it's available, but not everybody. We have not done a good job of advertising it, so not everyone is even aware that it's available. And I don't know if you maybe have the QR code here in your slides that you can show. There's a QR code. If you want to, you can just scan the QR code and you can download the app right to your phone, and you can actually look at it yourself to get a feel for what the questions are and what the results look like, and then you can share it with your customer. It's a great tool to kind of get them started to think about digital maturity.
Okay, great. Yeah, saw it. Thanks.
I sent the link in the chat so that you can download for both iOS or Android.
Perfect. Thank you. Yeah.
Is there any further feedback in David Nguyen? Do you want to ask something or share your personal experience?
So maybe another question from my end. So just now we talked about, DX being the enabler, right, to help the company run their operation more efficiently or effectively. And then what about DX as a enabler to help the customer drive more revenue or change their business model, right? From usage-based charging mechanism or helping them to do cross-sell, upsell. So how does DX help them, or how can I pitch a story to the CXO that DX can also help you to increase your revenue stream?
Yeah. So again, DX is not a project, right? DX is a strategy. It's a journey. It's a process that you need to follow as a company. So your customer is on a DX journey, a DX strategy, right? It's not a single project. And DX includes processes and people as well as the technology. So it's those three pieces, not just the technology piece. But I think it depends on the customer, Brian. So maybe, as an example, you mentioned upsell, cross-sell. One way to leverage DX to get to the point where you can do a better job of upselling, cross-selling is using data analytics as an example. Right. Clearly, big data analytics is a key enabler for digital transformation, no doubt. So one thing they can do is a lot of industries, banking, financial, a lot of different industries use data analytics as a way to cross-sell, upsell. What I mean is they collect a lot of different information on their customer. Demographic data, usage data, product data, pricing data, purchasing data, et cetera. They collect data on their customers and they start to understand what products their existing customers are using, and then and what is there an opportunity to cross-sell or upsell them on new types of products. Telecom is another industry that uses data analytics a lot for upselling, cross-selling. So if a customer is buying one particular product, look at how they're using the product, look at how much they're spending, look at their demographics, look at their location, and then you can zero in on specific attributes or trends in different groups of customers. And then you can focus in on cross-selling them with a different kind of product, and you can focus on upselling them to a more expensive product as well, based on what you know about them. So that's one example of how we can use DX and data analytics specifically in this example to help a customer increase their revenue by upselling and cross-selling. We can also help them with business models if they're using, for example, today, if they're product based and they're selling products for a fixed price, there may be an opportunity for a customer to go to more of a software as a service or a subscription kind of a business model. as another example, so we can help them understand, is there an opportunity for them to move to more of a subscription model for their product or service as well? So we can help them walk through that. Yeah, so there's a couple of examples. I hope that that's helpful.
Yes, Randall. Thanks on that. And the last question, most of the company here in Singapore, I mean, the last 3 or 5 years, right? They have this, in addition to their CIO coming in, they have this chief digital officer or chief data officer. So customer is trying to, look at their data asset within the company, right? So what can DX do, on helping the client on their data strategy within their organization? Because they have multiple silos, they are not able. There's a lot of replication. So I think one of the things that the customer was looking at is, how can service provider like ourselves come in to help them with their data strategy?
Yeah. So this, so again, it's a very common question. It's a good question, and it's one of the key things that we do today in helping our customers, and that is with helping them realize value in the data that they have and the data that they're collecting. So just one example, Brian, would be that one thing we would propose to a customer like this is we would provide a data platform for them. And a data platform will include everything from, for example, collecting data from different sources, storing that data in a single location in the cloud to make it available to be used for the company, everyone in the company, not a single silo, but everyone in the company can have access to the data, because we'll ingest that data into a cloud platform, into a data warehouse, and then that data warehouse can be an end user can search that data warehouse for the kind of data that they're looking for. They can create, charts and graphs of that data as well to help them make business decisions. So one of the things we would do is we would propose to them that we could build for them a data platform. It could be based on Microsoft Azure, or it could be based on AWS. It could be we're building our own data platform inside FSoft as well, inside DXG. So we may sell them our own data platform. As a result, it depends on what the customer wants and what they need. But in general, we can help them get the data out of the silos, bring it into the platform in a single place. We call it a single source of truth, because the data resides in one location, and then any user in that company can have access to that data to help create pretty charts and graphs to help them make decisions. We can also use AI and machine learning to create models to do some predictive analysis, so we can help them do some predictive decision making as well in their business based on AI and ML as a part of the data platform. So there's a few examples of what we could propose to a customer to help them realize the value that they have in their data.
Okay, thanks, Randall.
Sorry, my team said that you guys asked me the questions, right? Asked me to share the experience about the DX.
Yes, please.
Anything more specific on that, or just a general?
No, David, it's using Digital Kyzien specifically. That's our question is, are you using Digital Kyzien to kind of have this create a consulting engagement with the customer? If you're using it, great. Are you having some success? And if you're not using it, why not? And because we want to make sure that we can make it easier for your team to use, because we want to create the consulting business inside FSoft.
Yeah, I think I will pass this to our VP and your partners of business and solutions. So we are discussing with several customers on that. We've been discussing with several customers on that in the last few years. I think Adil can share some recently.
Yeah, David. Yeah, Randall, nice to meet you. I'm Adil. I'm based out of Singapore, and I work with David on the business development aspects, right? So even just like Brian, I've also recently joined FAP a couple of months ago. But based on my experience, what we were looking at is there are some of the key questions which we need to address, right, from both the business and the technology aspect, especially relating to digital, right? So some of the clients whom we work for, like the life science companies or consumer goods companies or finance companies, we want to understand what are the business or the revenue model, and from the operations, how do they do the things, and then what platforms or solutions do they require. So there are certain areas which we need to look at from the organization perspective, people perspective, culture, process, IT, governance, etc. Right? For making the what you say about digital Kyzien as like overlapping business and IT together. So marrying both so that we could do the whole IT or a digital transformation in instead of 10 years in 5 years. So how can we make it better, faster, cheaper for the client? I would say. So I think from our side, some of the key questions which have been asked at the C-suite level, especially in some of the CXO programs which we have run, or the events which we have had, or the meetings which we are having with the clients one-on-one, especially with some like Standard Chartered, where we are talking on the data. They are also trying to figure out what is the best operating model for their business, and what are the gaps. What are the gaps, how they can fix this whole digital transformation piece, right? And and conducting a transformation is necessary, not necessary. That's the key thing on their mind. How do I, make sure not disrupt the existing legacy system while I implement a new technology stack or the digital native stack, maybe. So do I need to do like legacy plus digital, or totally remove legacy and go for digital? So these are some of the key questions on their mind. And of course, from the industry maturity, like, financial services could be separate maturity from, say, someone like heavy on infrastructure like ports or seaports or transport, right? So depending upon the industry, what assets can be used to digitalized, what are the tools, assets, etc. So those are some of the key questions or on the mind from the digital leadership perspective in the industry.
Yeah, thank you, Adil. And I think what we're trying to do the idea behind Digital Kaizen is to put some structure and some process around exactly what you're just describing. And that's why we kind of think about, like we see on the screen here, in these sort of 3 steps. And the first is around kind of what you just talked about. What are the key questions to ask the customer? How we drill into the real challenges, as you said. Are they organizational challenges? Are they operational challenges? Are they process challenges? And then one of the advantages that we have at FSoft is we can take this kind of high-level strategy and focus on the where we want to help the customer, whether the process or whatever it happens to be. And we have the advantage where we can actually implement something as well, right? So we can implement a small project, a small MVP to prove some value to them, whether it's, whether it's operational, process-wise, platform-wise, whatever it happens to be. So we can do the strategy and consulting. We can also do the implementation to show some quick value. And we don't have to disrupt or affect the existing systems, as you said, right? We can do a quick MVP project to show them some quick value that then they can scale up to the larger parts of their business. And we can obviously help them plan and manage how does that integrate with the legacy systems. Does it integrate? If so, when and how? And we can obviously help them, with those steps as well as we go through it. But just as you described, that we're just trying to put some structure around this process of identifying these key business challenges, and then how do we apply digital transformation solutions to solve those problems. And we're trying to get, so the idea is that we're trying to spread this capability, this skill set of ours around consulting. We're trying to spread this deeper and deeper into our organizations in different regions for FSoft. So we have a consistent implementation of this consulting process of Digital Kaizen. And more importantly, right, where we want to create new revenue streams for FSoft with these consulting services as well. We think we can increase the size of a contract of an opportunity, and we can also find new revenue with consulting services if we can successfully implement this digital Kaizen methodology across the regions.
No, absolutely, Randall. I come from a consulting background. I've worked in consulting industry for last 20 years. So that's absolutely necessary, I think, from repositioning ourselves as well, right? So
Yes.
I'm 110% with you on this. But just from what type of target operating models do we have experience in? Like, so are we like trying to focus on more data centric or data powered operating model, or customer centric, or is it going to be like open and fluid, as they call it in the industry? So what type of models are we trying to operating models are we trying to focus on the digital?
Yeah, that's a good question. It's a good question. So we have inside FSoft, you may know that we have two major programs going on at the moment that we want to drive new business with. And maybe they're obvious for you, but at least it gives us some focus and some priority. Those two programs are cloud and data. So we're looking to push our cloud program, our cloud products and services very aggressively. And we're also now pushing our data services and products very aggressively as well. So those are the two programs we're very much focused on. We're just now beginning to kind of create a new business process engineering program as well, business process engineering, to focus in more on the process and operational side as a third area. But at the moment, we clearly have goals for FSoft level to focus on cloud and data services.
Okay. So that sounds good, because we have a few clients. In fact, to any of the clients which we talk in recent days, or even some of the partners, right? Data and cloud is on top of their mind, right? So
yes.
So we are planning for some workshops. We are planning for some focus group sessions, some deep dive sessions, and we're going to involve Rank and you definitely for some of those initiatives which are planned. In fact, I was just talking to David as well that we would like to do a customer or a C-suite breakfast roundtable, just focusing on data and cloud, where we include all the CDOs from the prospects and the current clients as well.
Yeah, perfect. And I think maybe as a part of that, if you want, Adil, we can help you and David kind of put together an agenda just to make sure we're kind of consistently, implementing what our digital Kaizen ideas are. But if you want, we can have a session to kind of go through what's your agenda, what are your objectives, and then maybe we can help with some ideas in terms of what could you include a part of the agenda. As an example, the digital maturity assessment I think would be a great tool for you to bring up for that audience to say, listen, this is one of the things we can help you do. I know that this always happens, Adil. I know that you've seen it. But if you ask the CEO, is your company mature with digital? They'll say absolutely yes. Right. But then you go and you do the assessment inside the company and it comes back. You know what the answer is? Not really. So there's normally a big gap and a disconnect between the perception of digital maturity and the reality of digital maturity. So one of the things maybe you could talk about in that roundtable is something like that. We can come in and help you with this maturity assessment. Let's identify, is there a disconnect? Is there a gap between where you think you are and where you really are? And then let us
absolutely makes sense. So I think that it could be used as a, then we could even let them know whether it's a high performing business, or we could from the digital maturity, we could then take it to the next level of how do we help them on high performing businesses as well, right? So
exactly
right. That's the whole idea, right? And I'm sure this whole digital maturity will come from organization perspective, KPIs perspective, processes, people, culture, and maybe of course technology, 100%. But those are the areas which you're trying to target on the digital maturity as well, right?
Yes, exactly right.
Yeah, sounds great. So I think we are absolutely aligned on this. I think this digital maturity assessment, I think it's so do we plan to send it out to the existing customers, to the CIOs, the CDOs, as one of the initiatives and find out the digital maturity, so that at least then we can use that data. You can use that information, and then upsell, cross sell, and not only for the new clients but also for the existing clients, right?
Yeah, exactly. And that's, as I mentioned before, we had kind of have two steps. We have the application, the mobile app that you can use as kind of a quick self-assessment for a C-level customer, as kind of a teaser, if you will. It's free, it's quick, it's easy. It gives you immediate results to see where you are in your own assessment. And we can use that as a teaser to say, here are your results. Now what we want to do is we would propose we have a 30-day project. We'll come in and do the one-on-one interviews and dig in a little deeper and get into the real assessment, right? So that's the idea, is we give them the teaser with the app. They could do that quickly on their own. Then we reuse the results of that to give them a proposal to dig in a bit deeper.
So basically, it's nothing but like a digital diagnostic, right? It's a diagnostic type of tool.
That's right. That's right. But it gives us then, it opens the door for us to then come in and say, here are your areas where you're weak and how we can help you fill those gaps.
Yeah, basically the digital readiness of the client at the enterprise level. And we also identify the opportunities, digital opportunities, and every aspect of the business. And then we could do a transformation mapping as a next step.
Exactly right. That's exactly right. So Adil, I hate to volunteer you, but if David is okay, I think as we go forward, whether maybe we can work together to help you plan your roundtable and other things you want to do with the assessment, but also maybe to get your feedback a little bit more on how we can, tweak our tools to make them a bit better as well. So it would be great if we could kind of work with you as an FAP representative, because you clearly have the background in consulting, right? And then we can maybe, make sure that we're, as I said, make sure that the tools we're creating for digital Kaizen are going to be practical and useful for other folks.
Actually, I have a quick question on this. Adil, from your consultancy experience, right, how can this be better tailored for the local market to receive it? And also, what are some of the key differences that Accenture did in terms of the explaining for the customers versus what we are doing right now?
I think we need to see I need to sit down with and see maybe with Greg. Let's have a closer deep dive type of a discussion in terms of the maturity model and etc. Right now, this 3 steps is a basic think big, start smart, scale fast step. But what I want to see is the list of the questions. What are the outcomes of those questions, etc., etc.
Yep, great. And as I mentioned earlier, we sorry, Adeline, go ahead.
Sorry. Yeah, okay. Because I mean, this is a cheat sheet that is used for FPT Global, right? So we also want to know, in terms of the local market where Adil already has a lot of years of experience, how can this be better tailored to fit to the customer for them to better receive it? And also maybe since he has the background from Accenture in doing consultancy, then what are the differences that those big 4 has been doing that we haven't been doing?
I think it's the positioning, right? At the end of the day, it's all about positioning. So the big 4s have always started off positioning their projects or whatever they go. They start from their challenges and they understand the challenges, pain points, and come to the outcomes, and then they will advise the client accordingly to shape the project, right? We initially started off as a services background or outsourcing organization. So now we are trying to take a full step back and try to start thinking from the consulting perspective, what Craig is mentioning, right? That this is exactly what we want to do. We want to get in, we want to assess your maturity, we want to understand your pain points, and then we will tailor the outcomes for you and a journey for you, a roadmap for you. So this is exactly what we need to do as the next step, right? Do a digital diagnostic. How is the organization doing, and then how can we help them change, which is nothing but a digital transformation mapping, and then we work together on the success of the operating model, like a digital operating model we create for them, which will accelerate the performance, which is nothing but the the high performing business for them, right? Moving it to the next step. And then the fourth thing which comes into our area arena is like how can we launch product quicker, platforms quicker, right? So it's something like an innovation as a service or launching, I don't know, a launching pad for the products, digital technologies to accelerate uh, uh, the best cutting edge products in the market.
Yeah, and Adil, just to let you know, for in the FSOF terminology, we refer to exactly what you just said, this innovation as a service. We refer to that as our DX garage. You see it here in step number 2 under the MVP graphic. It says start smart with DX garage. Right. So this quick start of showing value is what we refer to as the DX garage. So again, we are 100% in the right are on the same track here with you, what you're thinking, what you're describing. We understand that we are weak in the consulting piece, FSOFT in general, we are weak, but we are extremely strong, as you said, in the implementation. So how we just need to ramp up our consulting side, which is what we're talking about today, because we're ready to rock and roll on the implementation, right? That is clearly our strength. So yeah, so this is what we're trying to get done.
Correct. So we need to hit the nail harder on the consulting part, because we need to reposition ourselves, right? It's all about sometimes it's also about perception rather than the reality. So currently the perception is that we are very, very good in implementation. We are very good in outsourcing, but can we take our game one step ahead and start doing HVC, which I call it as high value consulting type of work, right? So we need to take our positioning to the next level of doing HVC work with some of the clients. And it could be like, for first few projects, we actually invest, right? Because this is something new for us, right? So we may want to talk to David and, see how we can invest in this high value consulting work, get some case studies, credentials under our belt, and then, take it to the next level.
Yes, and we're here to help you. So this is great to have this introduction today.
No, pleasure is all mine. Great. I think it's great. I think we will definitely, as a team, we need to work together, both FAP and your team. We do have a lot of initiatives. We do have some really, really good accounts, which like Standard Chartered, Parkway. We do have Changi Airport, Singapore Airlines. We want to see how we can, take from what we've been doing from our operational side or implementation perspective to a more strategic type of discussions and high value consulting type of discussions ahead.
Yeah, perfect.
So I think this is good, but what we need to do is maybe from the look and feel perspective, if Adeline, if you were talking about that, what better can we do? We can just simplify this. I think what is needed is simplifying. I was talking to David over the weekend as well. We need to reposition, rebrand ourselves. So we may want to just have a new look and feel of FAP in the market moving forward.
Yes, and I think to do that, to take that next step and look at some of the tools and templates we've created, Ideal, we're out of time now. So what I propose is that we schedule it. When, if you could please take the lead to schedule a follow-up call with Ideal, yes, with Floris, you and Floris, and let's go through the material we have and get Ideal's feedback on that. And then maybe, he can start to use it as maybe pick a couple of test case customers and start to use these tools already. And Adil, just to let you know, we DX, our team, myself and Floris specifically, are involved in Parkway. We're involved in Standard Chartered to some degree already. So we are engaged, but you're right. We need to up our game on the consulting side.
Yeah.
So we can definitely help with that.
Yeah, and this is not what I am saying. This is what even client is saying, right? So I have had a few discussions with some of the clients, and they also say that we are absolutely good in the implementation perspective, but if we need to do something more stronger, it's going to be a high value consulting type of work, or even high level solution architecture, enterprise architecture type of work with them to take our take our credentials higher in their organization.
Yes.
Yeah. So I think we are running out of time. I think now.
How long do we have for the session?
I think we have till 10:30, right?
Yeah, we're out.
Can you ask Jum to come here?
Okay. So I think rebranding, repositioning, and hitting it harder, talking about consulting all the time. I think that's what's going to get us there in near future.
Great. So we will schedule a follow up.
Yeah,
we'll schedule the follow up call to go through some of our tools and templates in more detail with you, Adil.
Sure, absolutely.
Okay. Thank you, everybody, so much. Very good conversation.
Randall,
Thank you.
So much.
And the DXC team.
Randall, David is here. He just wants to say a couple of words.
Yeah, I think for the next section, right, I would suggest that the DXC team would give some, kind of, study about what we are doing in this market. Because if the training been conducted in a way that you have no idea what we are doing in this market, what we are facing, and the customer and the case study that we have in terms of the DX with our customer, I mean the existing customer, and the opportunities that we are tackling and pursuing with our prospect, then I would say this section would not be up to our expectation. I mean, the actual expectation too. Right? It's
sure.
So you may not know that we are doing several DX programs with the customer in Singapore, and we would love to hear the different perspective and consult the customer in the different perspective instead of approaching them in a I would say a cliche way that we all talk about or discuss about when it's come to the DX program. Right. So you may start with further training in the FAP. I would suggest that you may have a study about us, and then you may identify the levels of the understanding that the audience are at. We are the beginner or intermediate, or we are the I would say kind of that. So when you identify your audience in this way, so you can tailor your training in a way that will be more effective for both sides.
Yeah, I agree, David. Thank you for that. I agree.
Sorry, Randall, one more question. How do we log into the mobile app? Because I tried using our company ID, but it doesn't work.
Just assign with anonymous access.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, Huyen, so I would suggest that you and your team do the homework before you conduct a second section with us, right? So as you may know, we're working with Parkway, Singapore Airlines, Standard Charter, Ingenico, so on and so forth, in the various industries. So we have a lot of questions actually. So I would suggest that the next topic you would have a case study or the business case on a certain customer or prospect that we are working with, right? Identify the relevant, make it as a business case or case study for the training, and then we have a deep dive on that, how we lay out the questions and explore the customer DX program. So I think that would be more, close to our expectation. And that's some of the opinion that I would love to share to make our second section more, I would say, lovely.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. So I will work with Adil. Adil can be FAP representative to give us the information about the case study you are dealing with.
Okay, so let me introduce the team again. Right, so we have Adil here. We have two teams in regarding sales and business development. We have two teams. So I gather the team in the meeting room and from FAB, I would suggest in the next meeting we gather in one room, turn on your camera, introduce yourself a bit to the trainer, right? So from our end, we have Adil, our senior VP and senior partner for business solution. He responsible for the business development. There will be Brian, he's the VP and partner. He also responsible for the business and solution and more for the business development. Besides the business development team, we have the sales and pre-sales. So we have 3 sales lead who is Adeline, Alvin, and Mark. Mark is is now on the plan back to Vietnam. Travel to Vietnam to accompany one of the CTO visiting our offshore team. And besides of the sales lead is senior director and directors. And besides the sales lead, we have a couple of AM, right? And that's the sales team. The next, the third team is a pre-sale. We have the solution architect, solution manager, so on and so forth, right? So those are things that you would love. I think you would need to, learn about us before you start the, in order for you to understand and get to know the audience before you start the section.
Yeah, that is valuable advice for us.
Yeah, otherwise our team would attend the meeting in a way that they attend the meeting, they also in parallel doing something else, right? So I also prohibit my team doing that. That's why, because at the end we already sit in here, right? We would want to spend a valuable time on this, having a discussion, a exchange with the DXC team, so that to make our approaches and conversation with the customer will be more effective. Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks. I think.
Yep. Thank you again. Thank you again, everybody. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you very much for the actually. We've been working closely with Frank and some of the team member and the Frank for a couple of CIO, CTO this week too. So you guys may need to take that as a case study that we explore for the further discussion on the next session.
Yeah, in fact, Craig, Flores and myself, we worked very closely because and with Elvin to come up with a value proposition for healthcare. So basically, we came up with a deck for digital transformation and healthcare. So yeah, we can do something similar.
Oh yeah, coming up.
So nice to meet you, Craig. I'll touch base with you separately as well, and let's catch up.
Yeah.
Thank you,
everyone.
Randall. Thank you, Ian,
Thank you, David,
and the team.
Thank you.
Take care.
Everyone from Maybe.
Thank you.
Have a nice day. Bye.
You too.
Ciao.
Bye.